TJ here. I hope everyone's doing well. Wanted to start off today, our great episode today. We're talking about 7v7 strategy. So, typical formation that we would see for U10 and up in youth soccer, and it's a super fun way to build upon the skills that are required for moving forward into 9v9, and then ultimately, sometimes 8v8 is another popular stepping stone for the middle schooler age, modified soccer as we typically call it. And a lot of the building blocks of 8v8 lead into very important concepts for 11v11. So one of the things we're going to do is talk about 7v7 strategy, and I have some concerns with some of the ways that we go about these formations for the U10, U12, U14. And I'll show you a specific formation that was super helpful, particularly for the outdoor. So let's get into it. As we transition into the U10 age group, particularly for um, youth soccer, a very, very important concept is space and understanding our formation, understanding the roles and responsibilities that each player has as they enter the competitive landscape. And I wanted to talk today particularly about um, a 1-3-2 formation and how this can really pay dividends in the U10 and U12 in particular. Um, but I would caution this is very, very much more geared towards outdoor. But when we talk about indoor spaces and indoor soccer, it's a very dangerous formation. But typically, with the indoor soccer, we would typically see a lot of teams choose a 3v3 format, which is very balanced, very common, covers the field quite, balanced. And, another formation that we would typically see would be the 2-3-1, which I think has more advantages as they get into the U12 in particular, because they start to realize how effective passing and finding lanes and movement is more beneficial. So we see this 2-3-1 formation actually um, used quite extensively as well. Another formation that we would see would be the 3-1-2, where we have three defenders, a center midi, and two forwards, which typically require a lot of responsibility for the forwards and the midfielders in particular. You'll see the outside defenders also have a large responsibility, and it's a lot of the field to cover for most of the team. So we'll see some difficulty with the younger age groups making any offensive progress here. Or if we get, players that are still bunching together, we'll struggle pretty much everywhere on the field to move the ball as a team. But today, I have actually had a lot of success with the 1-3-2 formation, and I wanted to talk about why that is. Particularly for outdoor soccer, we would see the 1-3-2 formation is an introduction basically to having a sweeper, a stopper, and two outside defenders, with the two forwards working very hard for most of the offensive play. And I've had a lot of success with this because if you're a younger team, you'll notice that confidence will come largely when the team is successful on defense. If the team cannot uh, yield or concede any goals, then they are constantly finding success as the play continues. The other team eventually gets bored, frustrated, and starts to make mistakes. To uh, refer to our famous Top Gun movie. But that's basically what happens. And it's a positive step for youth players to realize that, hey, we can make some progress here when we're on defense, but all of a sudden they find themselves in the offensive zone a lot. So 1-3-2 formation, again, we have the one sweeper, one primary defender working right to left the entire width of the field, wherever the play is, almost acting as a center defensive midi, but really that last line of defense to protect at all cost any shots or any movement towards the keeper. Our second row is our three midfielders. A center midi has responsibility all over the field as well, but their outside midfielders really are help required to be back on defense throughout the middle of the field in the primary responsibilities of the midfielders, and then helping up on offense as well. And then, of course, we've got our two forwards, which make the largest impact with scoring goal chances and creating lanes for forward passing into the middle and final third. So on defense, we could see how when things collapse, if you get your forwards back, it can essentially create a situation where we are very heavy on defense. And for most formations, if the other team is playing, 3-1-2 or 2-1-3 or something like that, you find that on defense, you're creating an overload situation where it becomes very successful to poke the ball away, get some movement away from the center danger zone, and then we'll get the ball back into possession. And as well on offense, when things push forward, we can see that we also create an overload at times when we push four guys up. We have four players up there. It can create a situation where we can definitely have more numbers on the final third, creating more opportunities as well. So if your team can pass well, you can have opportunities all over the field. And then, of course, in the midfield, we find that the control of the ball in the middle of the field, the middle third, is very strong as well, because when we have that center midfielder, the two outside midfielders, and the two forwards, if they're back, typically you'd have a numbers advantage in that middle third as well. So that creates a lot of opportunity to maintain possession. If your team is good at taking the ball out from the back, or confident enough to use the primary defender and as well the goalkeeper, you have the ability to move the ball back and then continue taking it out from the back for another opportunity. So again, a caution that is much more helpful of a formation when you're outdoors, when there's a lot of space and time to make things happen, especially for youth teams that are struggling to learn to pass or to move the ball and maintain possession. If your team is still attempting to crash through and taking players on one, constantly not using their own teammates for easy passes, I think you'll struggle, and it sets the team up for a little bit of risk on defense in particular. So I wanted to take some time and show this overview where we talk about the formations in 7v7. Some of the popular ones, we typically have the three formation, three midfielders, or three defenders, or three forward players. Uh, this definitely creates a balanced midfield and attack, as well as it provides solid defensive structure when we're back on defense, and enables effective ball distribution because there are still a lot of options to pass, but we can move the ball and switch the field in the back to make things happen. But it supports both offensive and defensive transitions. So if we're in the offensive zone, um, on the transition, if the other team does get the ball, we do have more players in a defensive posture to, you know, create delay for the rest of the team to get back. And of course, it allows for versatile player roles, especially the forwards who can drop in the midfield. So if you've got, forwards who are tracking back, the 3v3 can really make a big difference as well. Unfortunately, the cons of the 3v3 are that it requires disciplined midfielders to understand their responsibilities to be both um, on offense and defense, and they really need to track back. So if you've got a center midfielder or center defenders or the center forward, if they're not tracking back, covering the middle third and the first third, things can get very dangerous as well. Also, a possible lack of support to the striker. If you have a center defender who is, not following the play up the field, we'll typically see some issues where there's a huge gap and the defense or the midfielders appear disconnected from the offense. That can yield issues with having opportunities in the offensive zone. So the 2-3-1 is another option, which is very balanced on the midfield and the attack, just like the 3-3. But this also, just like the 3-3, provides solid defensive structure, enables effective ball distribution, and it's basically the same because you've got numbers back and in the middle of the field. And then it still allows for those versatile player roles. If you have forwards who are dropping back into the midfield, you're very strong, as I was showing, in the middle and defensive third because you've got the numbers to support options. Unfortunately, with the 2-3-1, only two players are back defending, and if the midfielders don't track back and they're not disciplined to be on both sides of the play, you'll find that the defense is struggling, and even the goalie will, when we have possession and we're taking it out from the back or we're punting it or throwing it out into the field, trying to maintain possession can be difficult. The opponent can easily step in front of midfielders who are not tracking back, and it makes it very difficult to maintain that possession. The 3-1-2 is a very strong defensive posture, very strong barrier of defenders in front of the goalie, making it very difficult to penetrate into that final third, and it allows for quick transitions from defense to attack. You have players back who can distribute the ball to the next row, put the ball up the wing, put the ball into a center forward or center midfielder who is finding space, and it creates opportunities for very effective ball distribution. We like this formation when we need to be defensive heavy against a very good team. And, unfortunately, this formation does require those disciplined midfielders again, and possible lack of support from the striker if you've got the two strikers not tracking back and not being part of the play on the middle third, it creates that disconnect. So that's also something to watch out for. And of course, our 1-3-2 formation that we talked about, again, a very strong defensive barrier. If your midfielders are tracking back, participating on defense, you've got essentially that sweeper stopper combination in the defensive zone, which makes it very difficult. And that allows for quick transitions, again, from defense to attack, mostly because you get the ball, a lot of opportunities to retain and maintain possession and move the ball forward. It can surprise a lot of teams in that middle third where you find you maintain the ball in the defensive zone, and it's really the middle of the field feels very empty. But that enables effective ball distribution as well, because if your strikers or your forwards are tracking back to be part of that, it's actually a lot of options to pass and move the ball. Unfortunately, the cons of the 1-3-2 are essentially that it does require those disciplined midfielders to track back and be part of defense, but then they have to be good, strong runners, fit individuals who can work forward into the midfield and up into the offensive zone as well. And then you could seriously have issues if the strikers, again, are not tracking back to participate. Like I said, you'd find the middle of the field quite empty, and that can be dangerous, where there's no one to pass it to, and if you see your team dumping the ball into the corner or just kicking it forward into the offensive zone, looking for opportunities, another team can easily outnumber the two strikers up front. So something to watch out for. So as we land the plane on this topic, it's a very important concept to choose your 7v7 strategy wisely. A lot of it for me comes down to the teams that will play, and then understanding, the roles that they typically would be required to fulfill for the team and the environment and their skill level, something very important to consider. I hope this was helpful for everyone. Feel free to give us a like and subscribe. Really appreciate anything you guys can do to support the channel, and it really helps when you're participating in that way. And as always, drop a comment, let me know what you think. Glad to work on any topics that you have that are of interest. Thanks, guys.